Well, good evening. I'd like to call the regular school committee meeting to order. Today is September 12th, 2023, and we are beginning our meeting tonight at 7:04 p.m. We are being broadcast, as always, live on PAT. Our minutes are being taken by our recording secretary, Laura Bowe, and if there's any questions, as typical when we get to the public participation, we are welcome to join us, and we can bring you in remotely if you have any comments. Just please raise your hand, and we can bring you on board. All right, I'd like to start the meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And during the moment of silence, if we could, yesterday marked the 22nd anniversary, which is unbelievable to say, of the tragic events of September 11th. We had a very special ceremony yesterday at our Public Safety Memorial, a very appropriate place to have it with our police officers and firefighters, in which we paid our respects and honored those that were lost in those tragic events, those cowardly attacks. But there were two members, as many know, that were from the city of Peabody that tragically died, and I wanted to have their names mentioned and to think of them and their families during this time. Christine Barbuto, Janice Lasden. Christine Barbuto's mother was a longtime teacher in the city of Peabody, very beloved members of our community, and certainly both Christine and Janice are greatly missed, and we think about them at this time. So if you could please keep them in your thoughts and during this moment of silence, and then we'll follow it with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have our full membership here today, and it's great to have Jared Hockman joining us remotely. Thank you for being with us, Jared. And now we'll go to item number 2, our minutes. We do have minutes from our August 22nd, 2023 regular school committee meeting. I'd open those up for discussion and or a vote.
Motion to accept and approve the school committee meeting minutes of August 22nd, 2023.
Second.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Amico, for approval of the August 22nd, 2023 regular school committee meeting. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman? Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item, number 3, approval of bills. We have 2 warrants. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Olympio.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5467, the amount of $629,104.76, dated September 12, 2023, subject to audit.
Second.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the motion for approval of warrant number 5467, made by Mr. Olympio, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. Hearing no questions, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman? Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5471 in the amount of $103,926.06, dated September 12, 2023, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. You heard his motion for approval of warrant number 5471, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman? Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Terrific, thank you. Next item will be continued business, item number 4. A couple of items for today. The first one is the Welch School MSBA project update. Mrs. Dunn, anything to report today?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the Welch School opened for classes with a lot of happy, smiling faces in more of the completed classrooms. We have moved into Phase 3, and the school is on target to be, the building to be completed in November. The last thing that will be completed is the gymnasium. They are working at that end of the building right now. They have completed a whole new cafeteria, new classrooms, of course, across the front, and then at the back, the classrooms on the first and second floor at the cafeteria end have been completed. There are still some things to be done. There are areas that need to be addressed where there's a mark on the wall with some furniture moved, and they've got to get the right paint in there, and they'll do those things, after hours because students are in the area. But for the most part, it's moving along very well. There is outside work and some landscaping still to be done, and there actually is some landscaping that will take place in the spring, just as a matter of course, just because of the growing season. But it's moving along as it should, and it is very exciting. We can't wait to have everyone come in and see the building and see how it's being utilized by the staff and by the students and the families already. The back was paved. The front has been paved, and there is paving that will take place in the spring. That's the plan. It may be moved up if we're able to do that. But right now, it's in good shape, and they're very happy to be in there. They really are. It's amazing to see it. So we have a regularly scheduled Welch School Building Committee meeting this Thursday morning at 9:30. It will be on Zoom, and that's a public meeting if anyone wants to tune in and see it. It's also on PATV, and always want to thank them for their help with this. And if anyone has any questions, I'm always available to answer. That's about it. That's about it. One of the things, though, that everyone has commented on in the building is how different it is with the windows and the light coming in, especially in the cafeteria. That was really surprising to people. So it's nice. It's a good project.
Excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Dunn, as always, for your reports and keeping us updated on everything. Next item, under continued business, we have the new public safety building. Mr. Miko, anything to report at this time?
Great, thank you. Through the chair to through the mayor to the committee. Yeah, I just wanted to see if anyone wanted to have some discussion on this and see if we can move forward. I do know from what the mayor had told us that we do have a payment to architects and so forth to this project. So I just wanted to open it up to the committee to see if we wanted to move forward on this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. I did want to mention, Mrs. Dunn sent over some questions, important questions about drainage and irrigation and some other matters, certainly transportation, things of that nature. So if it's okay, Mr. Amico, maybe we can keep this in committee a little bit longer. I wasn't able to get some of the answers to Mrs. Dunn's questions, and some of the questions are there's being studies right now on that. So I think we should be able to get some of that information over to the group. Mrs. Dunn, you okay with that?
Yeah, whatever. I did put them in writing. So,
Motion to accept in Mrs. Dunn's handout.
and I think so.
So why don't we do that? So there's a motion made by Mrs. Carpenter to receive a number of questions that have been presented to us by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Swanson. All in favor to receive? We will take that, and then I will forward that to our owner's project manager and our architect to hopefully get some answers. But I know a lot of the work, particularly on the drainage and irrigation, which is obviously extremely important, are being worked on now, and some research and studies are being undertaken now. So we'll do that and just hold this until that time. But thank you, Mr. Miko.
And, Mr. Chairman, I do reserve the right to ask further questions, as you know.
Yep.
Definitely have probably another page by the time I think about it. Thank you.
And I think, at some point here in the next couple of meetings, we can bring some of our consultant team to them, because I think that will obviously be best to,
Oh, yeah.
they would be the ones that would have the most information and things, so. That would make sense to me, but
Yeah.
those are important questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, superintendent's report. Dr. Vidala, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're officially back in school. We have all of our students in now. We started our grades 1 through 5 last week on Tuesday, and we welcomed our pre-K and K students on Friday. So we're back. This is the first full week of school. So quick update on the superintendent's report. We have 3 items. Our return to school, just I'll give a quick overview on that, and then we have a student learning update with our early literacy screening and sense of belonging updates around school safety and a special event that we have this Friday. So I'd like to start just with our opening day for teachers. We had a very successful opening day on August 29th. We had our JROTC students presented the colors. We were blessed with the Secretary of Education came to address our faculty. And I always start at the bottom left-hand picture here. I always start the year with an attitude of gratitude for all the work that our teachers have done and over the years, and just an exciting school year. So moving on, we have Secretary Tutwiler who came and spoke to our staff, very positive. And then on Thursday, we welcomed Chad Hymas, who was a very inspirational speaker, who talked about the power of the teachers, and that was very good. So we were excited to see him, and really great week of professional learning for our teachers, getting ready for our students to return. The following week, one thing I would like to mention is we began a new tradition this year of celebrating our staff. Last year, in the fall at the Moving On ceremonies, we celebrated students that exemplify our mission of hope. And so we had the Superintendent's Hope Award, and we recognized a 5th grader from every elementary school at their Moving On ceremony that the teachers picked that really exemplified the tenets of hope. And we had identified an 8th grader from each cluster that was moving on to receive the Hope Award, and that was voted on by the cluster teachers. And that was really a nice thing. It was really well received. And so we thought it'd be nice to start the school year by recognizing teachers in every building that exemplify the tenets of hope, of having high expectations, being optimistic, personalizing their learning, and of course, equity and access. So our recipients this year, these were chosen by the principals, Catherine Hines at the Brown, Nicole Safini at the Burke, Sue Valager at the Carroll, Evan Ruddick at the Center, Jamie Brogna at the McCarthy School, Wendy Neumann at the South School, Ben Stoller at the Welch, Lauren Smalley at the West, Vinnie Raponi here at the Higgins, and Bonnie Anderson at the high school. So each of these received the award at the beginning of the year, and at each monthly staff meeting, they'll pass the Hope Award to another member of the staff, and each month they'll honor a different staff member. And it's just a nice way to celebrate teachers, and it was a really good way to start off. None of them knew that they were receiving an award. They were all slightly embarrassed to come up and humbled, and it just shows what a great staff we have. So we're excited to pass that along every month to a different staff member and just recognize the wonderful achievements of our staff. Thought it was a great way to start the year. And of course, the first day of school on September 5th was very exciting. We have pictures here from the high school, from the Higgins. We have some of our elementary schools highlighted here. This group of girls here on the top right is a number of our center school students that joined the South School community. So you see a bunch of smiling faces there, joining some new friends. So that was really exciting. A lot of positivity on the first day of school, and of course, a picture of the Welch Elementary School with the new front. So we're really excited about that and welcoming our students on the first day. Some upcoming events. So our parent orientations start this week at the elementary level. So tomorrow night, Brown, Burke, and West will host their parents back in person for their parent orientation. And on Thursday, Center, South, Carroll, McCarthy, and Welch will all host parents for the back-to-school night. The Higgins will have 2 separate parent orientations, one on September 21st for the grade 6 students, and one on September 28th, which are both Thursday nights for grades 7 and 8. Last week, the high school welcomed families back for their open house, and that was successfully held last Thursday, September 7th, with a pretty good turnout. So we're really, really excited to bring our families back, talk about the wonderful things that are going on. So really a positive start to the school year. And then moving on to the next item, we have some student learning updates. This year, there is a requirement for early literacy screenings, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Chase, who will go over some of the information on this slide and what this means for parents and our faculty. Dr. Chase?
Thank you. So new this year is a requirement for every student in grades K through 3 across the state to be screened in early literacy. And the purpose of the screening is to get a sense of where our students are, where they might be struggling, and how to provide interventions within the general ed classroom if there is a sign of potential struggle. So the good news for us is that our teachers have been screening students for longer than I've been here in the past 3 years, and so they are in a prime position to be able to do so and continue that work. We have a platform called Renaissance that is an approved screener by the Department of Education, and we would continue to use that this year. The first step would be to notify parents. So we do this screening all the time anyway, 3 times a year, but this would be just to comply with the regulations to notify parents that we will be doing this. The second piece of the action steps up here is that we will screen in the fall, winter, and spring for grades 1 through 3, and that is in line with what we've done in the past. We also screen kindergarten students as well, but because they are getting acclimated to what kindergarten is all about, and they're coming from so many different places all over the city, one of the things that we like to do is let them get their feet wet with kindergarten first. We'll do an informal assessment, and then we will screen in the winter and the spring. And that meets our obligation to screen our students at least twice a year. From there, when we look at the screening results, the school will send reports to families. There are 2 types of reports. One is that your student is scoring at a particular level, and the other is that there needs to be a little more attention. And with that comes an invitation for the parent to ask questions about what that intervention might look like. And again, these are things that we do all the time. Our teachers are working with data. They use module assessments. They use screening. And they're constantly looking at what kids need, and that's part of that vision of hope with the personalized learning. So understanding who the students are in front of you and then giving them what they need to be successful. Up here on the bottom right, you see the little chart that shows and will be shared with parents about what that looks like. And as always, we're open to any questions that families might have and being transparent about what those reports show. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Shea. So many of our families are familiar with the STAR reading and STAR math assessments that we do. Those are our screeners. One of the components for our younger students within the STAR reading is called STAR Early Literacy, and that's the approved assessment. So we'll continue with the STAR Early Literacy, and parents will get a little bit more notification, and we'll be a little bit more formal with some of the interventions that we can provide. But we've been fortunate that we have adopted this STAR assessment for many years, and I know my children have taken the STAR assessment 3 times a year since they've been enrolled, and so that's very common to our families and to our kids. But some of the follow-up will be new. So I think that's we're in a good position for this screening because we have a history of providing those assessments to our students. And the final 2 items, so our other SMART goal here is sense of belonging. So we have 2 items that we'd like to talk about tonight with sense of belonging. So the first one is around school safety. We've done a lot of work with school safety, and so I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Higgins to talk a little bit about some training that we had with the I Love You Guys Foundation. Great company that comes in. They talk about the standard response protocol, and this was a wonderful partnership we have with our police department and this outside foundation that came in to do some training for our administrators, and then we did that training for our staff as well. So, Dr. Higgins?
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. So I'm pleased to announce that we went into a formal partnership with the I Love You Guys Foundation. So in 2006, there was a school shooting at Platte Canyon High School. And what happened was a 16-year-old student, Emily Keys, was in the classroom and was communicating with her parents. This is 2006, not nearly as common with texting and things, and so kind of an old-fashioned. And the last message she was able to send out to her parents was, "I love you guys." And in her honor and in her memory, her parents started this foundation back in 2006. And since that time, they've worked with more than 45,000 school districts in organizations across the United States. And so they're wonderful. They provide all the documents for free. So as Dr. Vidala mentioned, in August, a retired federal official came up, and he did a training for all of our administrators, our school resource officers, Sergeant Tim Sullivan. So we were all here had a great training together, and then in turn, on the first professional development day at each of the schools, all the teachers, paraprofessionals, we asked the clerks, custodians, anyone who was there to come in to receive the training. So again, it's a common set of language. The poster is, very clear, the action steps taken, and so we're kind of establishing across all of our schools, K to 12, a common language. So these folders are our classroom teachers. They all have this with the action steps in it. We also, not only do we have the ID badges to get in and out of the building, we put the 5 steps here. The idea is for it to be easy, right? So whatever the protocol may be, the response, it's just a simple, okay, we're going into a hold. Oh, this reminds me, those 2 or 3 words. And so it just makes it a lot easier on people. The whole idea is to make it as simple as possible, uniform response. And as Dr. Vidal mentioned, the entire time, we've worked closely with the police department, the fire department, and we'll continue to do so. We're setting up some drills for the fall that we'll be able to run. Today, an email went out to parents. I shared it with the committee. Again, just explaining it to them, simple steps that it is, things that they may see visiting the schools. In fact, we were in a classroom earlier for a meeting, and I saw the poster up on the wall. So things that they may hear their children talking about. With drills, we're going to be very, very clear about drills. We're going to communicate that ahead of time. The idea is to kind of practice muscle memory. We're not interested in scaring anyone and those big surprises and things. So we'll be very transparent and communicative around those. And so we'll plan those working with them. So we're really excited to kind of have this common standard approach that all of our schools, all of our students will follow. And I'll continue to update you, of course, during the year as we have some drills and we have feedback and things of that nature. But really happy to kind of roll this out and get started with this work. And, nope, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you through the chair to Dr. Higgins. Thank you for this. I'm reviewing the SRP. I guess everything kind of has,
We love acronyms.
yeah, standard response protocol. And this form is great because I think a lot of people do get confused between some of the language. Lockdown, shelter, what else do you have in here? Secure. This is great, and I really like the, on the tag now.
Oh, yeah.
If, because sometimes you can get confused between the secure, lockdown, shelter, hold. These are a lot of different things. And people are panicking no matter which one you're saying. My question is, where does Alice fit in all of this? Is that something that we're doing in training, or?
No, at this time, we are not adopting any of the Alice response. If that's something that the committee would want to pursue, we could see where that may fit in, but at this point, we're not Alice trained as a district. We're not rolling that out.
Okay. Did we have it before? We were doing Alice before, weren't we?
So we haven't done the formal trainings for Alice, but a lot of the acronym are built into this.
Yeah.
So when the gentleman who was the federal agent came to do the training, he talked a lot with Sergeant Sullivan and our SROs about what is in common here and what is the difference with Alice. And I think the biggest piece that is different is sort of like the fighting back piece, which we're not sure, if that's something that we want to train everybody to do. So it's really, this is sort of a standard response protocol for any situation that could happen. So, for example, if you need a medical, if someone's having a medical episode and you need to get the hallways clear, you go into a hold. And so that's something that we do all the time. It could be something as simple as someone threw up in the hallway. You go into a hold, everyone closes the doors, you clear the hallways, they're able to get the medical attention or get a stretcher out or just clean up a mess, and it keeps going. Secure is if something is happening outside. You secure the building, but business as usual on the inside. And so they went through. So the lockdown situation is part of Alice, and there's just some little tweaks. Certainly something that we can look into, but right now, the recommendations that we have from the police department and from the outside group is that this should be our focus more so than that specific protocol.
Thank you. I'm just trying to review this real quick because we just got it. So I was just trying to see which one kind of shows the shooter in the building, right? And Alice is, and I see the difference in Alice is the fight back part. And I'm quickly reviewing this. I haven't seen it yet to fully read it all, but I don't see the fight back part. And of course, I defer to our police department. They're the experts in it. But I was always under the impression that we're doing Alice. So this is, although not new, but new. There is just that missing piece of the fight back. But you're telling me that this has been vetted by our police department and they believe this is the correct response and what we should be doing?
Yes, and we'll get into more of the drill. So within lockdown and evacuate, those are two areas where an active shooter scenario could be, we could be looking at something like that, where we want to either lock down, lights out, out of sight, that's sort of like the hide piece. Evacuate is the run piece, under the whole run, hide, fight piece. And they do talk about there's different aspects of training that would overlap. And so when we get into the drills, I think lockdown and evacuate would be where you're looking. Right now, we're looking at, these could be standard responses for anything, hurricanes and oil spills and things like that. There's a million different things that it could be. So anything would fall into this standard response protocol, but the doomsday scenario or the thing that we don't want, to ever happen is in the lockdown and evacuate, and some of our drills will be able to identify some of those things.
Where's the run? Which one's the run under?
Evacuate. So sometimes evacuate is simply a fire drill, and sometimes it's to a location. So when we're looking to evacuate the building, or we give us a specific location, that would be, where we'd want kids to exit the building. That would be under evacuate.
I guess I'm just looking for maybe if we could have this on the agenda again, to have maybe our police come and talk about how this just seems a little different to me, and I'm just trying to understand just in the past some of the other things that we've done and experienced and trained for. I love the language piece because there are so many different things that you get confused about, but I think I'm just more concerned about the Alice piece, and it can be under a safety subcommittee meeting, but it feels different to me, and I just want to try to understand how we're going to be prepared for more of that shooter in the building. If that's something we can go into a little bit further.
Yep, absolutely, and I think it'll be important to bring them in, and because we do lean on the police department, for this. This was something that was found, and it's in conjunction with law enforcement, so that's one of the reasons why we adopted it. And they had stressed the need for this common language. So I think that we can keep it on an agenda, or perhaps have our own standalone meeting with the safety subcommittee, and then bring it back. But I do think having the police here would be very helpful.
Yeah, just to hear a little bit more about it, I'd feel more comfortable. But I do
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Higgins. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Mr. Amico?
I agree with you. I do like language. I like the basic language here, and it's something that a lot of school districts do follow. I do, through the chair, Mr. Olympio, would you, could we set up a safety subcommittee? I do think a lot of the information that Ms. Carpenter was, I'd rather not have it in public and have the police and maybe the organization via Zoom if we can, but let's have a safety subcommittee if we could. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really like this because I know years ago we learned about the real true benefits of having a common vocabulary for certain things in the schools, how much it helped because of the fact that at everyone's home, there is a different way of talking about something. Get out means something different than, evacuate. If everyone knows what that means, then you're 10 times ahead of where you were. My question is, well, I have two. Can we make sure that this information is provided to those people who serve as substitutes in the district? And especially for any new hires, to make sure that's part of training, especially with the subs. Are these going to be available like in the same place in every classroom? I know you used to hang things in a certain spot.
Yeah, that's a great, and that was the idea of having this is like classroom-based, and the exact idea is that that's going to be left in the, same area as a school practice. And so if there is a substitute teacher, that's going to be there. That's the class roster, red and green cards. So that process will be the same. And so that way, especially some of our substitute teachers work amongst the different schools.
Right.
They'll see all of the same posters, process, steps to follow. So that was along the same idea, but very good point.
Oh, good, thank you. And do our substitutes get an ID badge for access? And
Yeah, so
they'll
as,
get that
as
little
we've been
card?
reviewing a lot of the safety protocols, we talked about, it's wonderful now to have all of the staff be wearing them. And so what we're going to do is, at all the schools, if you're visiting, if you're working for the day as a substitute teacher, we're going to ask people to have ID badges. So then the practice becomes, if we see an adult in the building, you're comfortable stopping them and saying, can you check in and ask about that. So we are going to have ID badges either indicating what their role is, substitute teacher, or things like that, and/or obviously workers for the city.
Very good. There's 6 of us here that need that badge to go with our ID
Absolutely.
badges. Thank you. Okay, now my other question, and it kind of folds in with Mrs. Carpenter's. I know there's a safety audit going on in all of the buildings in the city with the law enforcement experts. When they're doing that audit, is it, like, I'll say 2 parts. Is it, a hardware, the building audit on safety recommendations, and would it be an audit on practices and policies as well?
Yeah, so we have the Ed Davis Foundation coming in. They came in yesterday. They review all of our policies. They look at our practices. They interviewed our facilities director, our SROs, our everybody from building and grounds, principals, athletic directors. So they came on site yesterday. So they were there for arrival at the high school, and so they're going to give us a full report on everything. So one is the physical building. They'll make some recommendations about whether it's cameras or doors or whatnot. They did like the fob system that we have with the ID badges, but they also look at policies and practices and see. So they do have some people who were in different phases of government that are part of their staff to talk about, what are the policies that we have. They review our policy manual. So it's a full circle, I guess they call it like a 360 overview of our policies, procedures, and physical plant. And then they write us a recommendation based on that. So we should have that at the end of the month.
Very good. Okay, so that
very
might have
comprehensive.
something in there about, Alice training or something like that. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Swanson?
Thank you. Quickly to Dr. Higgins. Is this the same procedure you rolled out last year?
Yes, so when I believe in the springtime, we were showing you this, exactly. So we were waiting for the start of this school year to roll it all at the same.
Reason I ask is obviously now you have staff members that have heard this 2 times, and the more you roll it out standardized, it's going to be ingrained in them, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and what I really want to emphasize is what we had in place before this, I would say 90 to 95% of the language is similar. It was really, though, the confusion. I mean, let's be honest, and especially if you're nervous. So I think what we really liked was it just kind of simplified it a little bit and took some of that pressure away of, are we doing a secure or a hold? What is it? I'm not sure. And you're nervous. So this is the simple way with the flow chart. Just look, okay, there's an incident outside. It could be a coyote that's wild running around. But still, you have a protocol to follow and bring people in and watch it. So, I mean, a lot of those steps are not new to the staff, which is nice. I just think we're just aligning it and making it clearer language, much more visual in the school and for people to have. So I think that's the key, but not new procedures that we're doing all of a sudden.
No, and I appreciate it, and that's what I like is the standardization of it, the common language, and the repetitiveness of the training is going to help in any situation. Mine are like a coyote that's running around the high school, or a worst case scenario. Everybody should be on the same page and will help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Mr. Olympio?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Higgins. This is great. Dr. Vidala, can we try to maybe have the chief come see us before, we can have a safety subcommittee before the next meeting? A couple of weeks, that would be great. Okay. Thank you.
Great. And then the last item is sort of an exciting one, an event that we have this Friday. Dr. Higgins, I'll let you also lead this one.
Yeah, so, obviously, we were also moved by, Officer Parkinson's passing, and at the school level, talking about some ideas. And so I really got to give credit to Mrs. Smith at the Carroll School, Mrs. Sullivan at the South School, and the idea of, what can we do in his memory? So this High Five for Henry, we reached out to the police department, and they're going to have representatives at each of the schools. We asked children could wear blue in support of the Peabody colors and/or a motivational saying, and it was just that's who he was, and for us to kind of celebrate that, partnership, and these are the people here to help us, and just we thought that was a great way to kind of connect that. So this message is going out to parents this week. We're going to talk to the children a little bit on Thursday, so that Friday morning coming to school, they kind of understand what that's all about. And so proud to share this publicly with the community.
So in the past, we've done High Five Fridays a couple times with the police department, and Henry loved it. And he was always the first one in line at a lot of our schools. Loved the Welch community, he loved the Carroll community, and he was at all of our buildings. So we thought this would be a nice way to honor Henry, and it was something that the police department really likes as well. So it's a nice way to embrace community policing. So we'll be doing that on Friday.
That's wonderful. It really is.
Superintendent's report.
Mr. Chairman?
Please, Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was holding my questions till the end on the superintendent's report, but really what I did want to say was, thank you. I think the Hope Award is wonderful. I think that's a great idea. What a nice way to start the year off. And I also wanted to thank you for the explanation about the literacy screening for the students, so that everybody knows, what's going on with the kids when they start school. I think it's great. And I have another compliment. I'm really glad you did all the open houses and parent orientations right at the beginning of the school year. I think that's really important, and I'm very pleased to see that. And more than anything, I want to thank you for sending this out early so we could look at it and have all this material. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn, and thank you, Dr. Vidal, and everyone for the presentation tonight. That's great. Next, we will go to public participation. If there's anyone in the audience who'd like to come forward, the microphone is open. Welcome, Mr. Charis, and if you can just introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, school committee members, Mr. Mayor, the doctors. My name is Ed Charis, 7 Columbus Road, Peabody. I just wanted to start off and say that myself as a resident certainly supports the development and building of a public safety facility. We tend to have facilities go too long before being refurbished or built or replace, and I know this is a time that we're doing this now. But one of my questions, and I know you won't be answering me, so I get that. Some of them will duplicate what Mrs. Dunn had asked, and I see that here, but if you just bear with me. I believe to turn this back over to the city, you need to deem it surplus. And I'm not sure how this parking lot could be deemed surplus when it's used. And I know when I spoke about this a month ago, Mr. Mayor, I said to you, I know at least one day a year, people are parking all over the place, on the grass, the weeds, the hills, everywhere, to try to find a parking spot. And the last thing I don't want is that people don't come to the school for different events because they know we're not going to be able to find a parking spot. And that kind of goes against what we want to do as an inviting atmosphere. So when I asked about that, and Mr. Mayor, you commented and said, yes, it's at least 4 or 5 times. And I think you're correct. And a couple of them, I think it might be even more. I think it's the times that we have touch a truck events here, when we have any bike rallies or things of that nature in the community. Never mind the teacher development days that they come. And it goes on and on. People say, well, we only use it a few times a year. Well, I only use my snow shovel a few times a year, and I don't give that away. So I think it goes in the same premise of having something that we finally got. I said when I left the school committee that I will never forget where I came from, and that's why I'm here, because I'm not forgetting where I came from. It was a long time coming with this school, and we know that we needed the facility, and we know we needed the parking. And with the MSBA, part of that funding was to pay for that parking lot. And I'm not quite sure if it would be right for us in such a short period of time to deem it surplus and turn it over to the city for another use, no matter how valid that use is. You members here, school committee members, first priority is the schools, the students and the parents. And certainly it is to the public, but your first priority is to the teachers, the kids, and the people who come here. Now, right now, last year, first graders, they'll be in this building when you're starting to build. And by our own numbers, we're going to have over 300 additional students than we do now in this building. This building up, I believe, Ms. Dunn is better with the memory than I am. I think it was built for just one student more than what we had at the time. And that is not talking about the single-family homes that we're building, the 40Bs that we're building, or the apartments, which is over 700 in the next 5 years. We're going to need every space that we have here. I think David McGeaney said it. If you build it, they will come. And we do have the kids coming back. They see, the parents see what the facilities is. We need to maintain that. We had a plan when we built this place. We need to stick to that plan. We need to find a better, suitable, right spot for the facilities that you want to build. Up there isn't the spot. When I was at the meeting, the presenter, who's the architect, design, was saying they had 3 options that they were looking at. And then they were twisting and turning to try to get it to fit in that spot. That facility deserves more than we're going to try to fit it into a spot. It should be designed for the full use of what they need, and not just to fill in. When we asked about the costs, they had no idea. They had no idea what's underneath. I know what's underneath there because I was on a school committee when we decided to build this. There's a reason why this building is this way. We moved it as far away from the ledge as we possibly could. When you're talking about the drainage and irrigation and everything else, when you start blasting, you know you're going to crush pipes. You're going to break lines. And if you think you're going to be easy to drill sewage lines and all underground utilities through the ledge, you're crazy. And not to be able to understand exactly what it's going to impact the school grounds and the costs before taking a vote to turn it over. I just don't understand it. Again, when we built this, we asked MSBA for funding. We are now going to reach out to them for the center school and the high school too. I can't imagine, I would not want to jeopardize the ability to get their approval. When we got their approval, we got their money, and our city money too, to do this facility, and then less than 10 years later, we hand over a piece of property that was in the planning of this facility. Now, if I was a member of that board, I'd be certainly thinking about when you're coming to us, MSBA, to say we're looking for funding. I can't imagine they're not saying, well, what are you going to do? We just did this with you. I would not want to jeopardize that. We need a new high school. We need a new center school. We need a lot of things in the schools. And I know you folks are working really hard at it. And I thank you for that. But don't be the kid running out in the street chasing the ball without looking. You're going to need as much space here as you can possibly get. If it's for drills, evacuations, sporting events. And let's talk about the sporting events. We may not use that field very much right now, as much, but when you start building the high school, and I say start building because I'm optimistic, but what are you going to do about the playing fields there? There's not going to be easy access to those fields and the parking. You're going to have to move some of those sporting events to this facility here. And what are you going to do about parking then? Again, when people can't find parking spots, they go elsewhere. If it's a restaurant, an event, or a school, they stop coming. And we don't want that. I went off script here a little bit, so I hope you just bear with me. The plan with this facility, the plan for Emerson Park. I guess not everyone wants to hear me. To Emerson Park, that this was going to be the central place for the city for outdoor recreation. We're going to continue with Scouty's Way. We're going to cut through, clean up the woods so there's paths, so the Higgins and the James Street Park can be connected. Where are those folks going to park? Now, people talk, well, it's a great idea that you're going to have the old police station to use as a school building or other facilities. And we're going to be able to have some parking down there. Police station doesn't have enough parking now. If you make that the school administration building, which would be a great idea, where are those folks going to park? It's a bad idea. It's a good thought about building it, but the wrong place. The ledge alone, I know you talk about we don't have to pay for the land, but the ledge alone, the site work you'll be doing on that will cancel out any savings, and you're gonna try to squeeze it in. And you're gonna lose at this end. You're stealing from Peter to pay Paul. You folks know better than that. It's just not the right thing to do. I understand we generated a lot of bills already. That shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't be having expensive work done before we realize, can we do it? And I say, can we? Do we have the votes? Is it right? Do you have the public participation? We had one meeting. Now, I know as a politician, when you want to get things done, you have them during the summer. Well, I don't think that was right. I understand that you want to get the votes and you want to get the answers, but you're rushing it. Peabody's never gained when we rush things. Ms. Dunn talked about the construction. When we built, sorry, Mr. Mayor, is there something?
Yeah, we usually put a time limit on Mr. Chair.
Yes,
so
and
I
I've been at many of these meetings, excuse me, through the chair, I've been at a lot of these meetings when you allow a person to talk, or maybe a little
I
loud.
was speaking, I wanted to finish. I just wanted to say, I mean, I know you know the rules, but I just wanted to kind of, we do put a time limit on, so just wanted you to be aware of that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome, Mr. Charleston.
The construction vehicles that's going to be on the property when doing this, okay? When we did the Higgins, you had more space. You didn't have work that was already done on the grounds. That work is already down. It's done. My question is, too, if any damage is done to the schools or any cost that's going to be equated to the schools, because for what other particular reason, is that going to come out of the budget or would it be a supplemental? School committee, you should ask that if this vote goes through, you decide to transfer the property, if down the line that it doesn't happen, does the property get transferred back? These are a lot of questions, and if I'm irritating anybody because I'm asking a question, then that says a lot. But these are questions that people have, I have, I'm a taxpayer. And I would certainly support something that sounds reasonable. Just to me, doesn't. Maybe I'm wrong. It's easy to answer the questions to prove me wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Charis. Okay, next item, written communications. We do have one. Bay State Textiles Monthly Report. Motion to receive.
Motion to receive.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Amico. All in favor?
And may I ask, could we invite a representative, excuse me, of Bay State Textiles to come in and talk with us? I think it would be interesting. They can give us some good information about how much money the city has saved on the tipping fees for, keeping this out of the trash stream. But also, if you look at just the bottom line on this, it's about $1,000, and that was 1 month that comes back to our PTOs, and that's very helpful too. So if we could have someone come in and invite them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Okay. Subcommittee reports, Education Subcommittee, Mr. Amico.
Nothing to report at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Finance, Mr. Olympio.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a meeting, a Finance Committee meeting before this meeting, and we were discussing some personnel and some contract issues, but one thing that an additional thing that was brought up was potentially exploring a position in the transportation for a clerk. Certainly that we're thinking that might be a big help. People have transportation issues. There's somebody there designated to receive calls and to call people back. That might be something that we should look into, and we'll be exploring that in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. I'm Mr. Olympio. School safety. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, through the chair, and Mr. Olympio, thank you for bringing that up. While we're in finance, I just had a quick question for either the superintendent or the business manager. When we formulate a budget, right, Chapter 70 funding comes in, the city has to give their amount by law. Do we have a list, and if we could for the next meeting, how much the city has given above and beyond, maybe over the last 5 years? Because my point here is, it seems like, and we had a conversation about the police building, and it seems like we've gone from school committee versus city, but when the mayor and the city council appropriate extra funding for our schools, we're certainly taking it as a school committee. So I just wanted to put it out there publicly, if we could just get the amounts, I don't know, say for the last 5 years where the mayor's office and the city council have appropriated above and beyond what we are budgeted for. I appreciate that, thank you.
Sure. Okay, thank you, Mr. Amico. School safety.
Hopefully in the coming weeks, we'll we'll have our meeting with the chief and before the next school committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Athletics and wellness.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope you guys can all hear me. Good. Yeah, so we've started a new school year, and we have fall sports off and running. I think the superintendent, Dr. Vidal, had some information to share regarding Peabody's success in terms of athletics recently. Dr. Vidal, are you able to share that?
Sure, absolutely. Each year, the state of Massachusetts awards a Dalton Award, which is for excellence across all sports. And they recognize the top 10 schools. And this year in Division I, our public schools Peabody Veterans Memorial High School across all sports had 218 wins, which I think is one of the largest win totals we've had across all sports, which placed us in the top 10 for the first time in a long time. And it shows the depth of our programming. So we finished 7th overall in the Dalton Award voting, and Mr. DeRocha said it's the first time since he can remember that all of our sports were in a situation where we could earn that award. So we were recognized in the top 10 for the Dalton Award. I thought it was great for the 2022-2023 season, and we'll certainly look to eclipse those marks for this year. So some nice news coming out of athletics. And we've had a great start to the season. A lot of our fall sports are in full swing. We're already seeing quite a bit of success too, so we're really excited about that.
Yeah, that's some really, really exciting news, and it's good to see Peabody getting some positive press when it comes to some of the successes that we all see on a regular basis. But it seems like the broader community doesn't always get to see it, so it's nice to get some coverage there. In terms of fall sports, we do have our home opener for a football game this Friday night, and Athletic Director DeRocha sent out a nice email today reminding folks about our code of conduct and also the pricing for the game. I believe it's $7 for adults. Peabody Veterans Memorial High School students are able to attend for no charge. Senior citizens, I think, pay $5, and other students pay $5. So let's go out there and support the football program and the cheerleading program and the band that'll be out there performing as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Quality and Standards, Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to work with my colleagues on the subcommittee, but tentatively the 21st of this month to pick up on a couple of policy items that we need to bring forward and complete, and some of the lists that we've been working on to complete that as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Parent and Student Advisory Boards, Mrs. Dunn.
Okay. The first meeting of the year will be September 27th. That's a Wednesday. And at that meeting, we will set the year's agenda, the topics that the parents want to explore, and set up the year schedule. And one other item that we will start, and immediately it will be turned over, but to begin a citywide PTO to put that structure in place, and then the PTOs will take off with that and work on that for the year. But it will be a meeting where I will invite not only the Parent Advisory Board members, but the executive boards of the PTOs, just so that they can hear about it and take it under their own advisement and work on it. So that's going to be the 27th, here at Higgins at 7 p.m.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Building and Grounds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hockman?
There's a tremendous and exciting news going on around the city, around the school buildings. We've had a new playground open up over the summer at the McCarthy Elementary School. We have money being raised by some fine young people and some fine people around the city for some improvements over at the West Memorial Elementary Playground. We have a site visit by the MSBA senior team coming to the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School next month. We're very excited about that. Center School has undergone some renovations over the course of the summer. I do understand third hand that there may be some issues with that, so if I could pass that off to either Mr. Amico or Dr. Vidala to talk about some of the issues going on at the center school and what we're doing to address those.
So over the summer, Mr. Hockman, over the summer we had all the tiles replaced, and we did have an issue with some of the tiles, a very small number, that cracked when they were moving some items. So those have all been replaced, and so we did identify what the problem was with that. Not a whole scale problem, but some small, about a quarter size crack in just a handful of tiles that have all been replaced since. So we do not think it's a whole scale issue. That has definitely been addressed, and we're looking to identify the areas that will be remedied for next year. So we'll be looking forward to having a center school building committee meeting and talking about what we'll be doing next year as well. So I think that's what you were talking about. If there's anything else, please let me know.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dr. Vidal. As you can tell, I'm out of town and I'm getting some information piecemeal, and I heard about the tiles. I just didn't know. I knew there were some corrective measures taken. I just wasn't sure what they were. So thank you for filling me and us in on that. We do have a building and ground subcommittee meeting tomorrow night focusing on the center school. It'll be, I think, at 6:30 p.m. and it's on Zoom. So I look forward to having that meeting tomorrow night. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman.
Could I ask a question?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm sorry. With the meeting for the building and grounds regarding the center, will that concentrate on the building itself, or is there any discussion about the formulation of forming committees at that school? There was something about parents being involved in the ongoing discussion about where the kids are going to go and how to handle all that. Are they two separate committees at the
Ms.
school
Dunn?
level?
Yeah, Ms. Dunn,
Thank
yeah,
you.
tomorrow's meeting is gonna be, really the rolling out of the center school building committee that has been, I think, put together by, I'm not sure if it's the principal, I'm sure the superintendent had some significant involvement in that, and others. And then I think that the inaugural center school building committee will actually meet, or is expected to meet sometime late September, maybe early October, to address a lot of the issues that are going on with the work that will be done in that building and the population that has a lot of questions, and there'll be a lot of moving parts there. So I hope that answers your question, but if it does, or questions, but if it doesn't, I'm happy to follow up.
No, because I know I've had a couple of people ask me, not specifically about like the work being done, but more about the considerations of the timeline for the decisions of where the kids are going to go and how that's going to work.
Yeah, so I think,
Yeah, I think
oh, sorry, go ahead,
I'm
Mr.
sorry, Doctor, go ahead.
Sure. If I could just jump in. So I think tomorrow's meeting, we have a couple parents, a couple teachers that have been identified for the initial meeting. We'll talk about both. The student side of things and the family side of things, as well as what we're going to be doing work with the building. Mr. Hafey will be there and that team. And then what we'll do is we'll schedule a community meeting to sort of roll out what the smaller committee has discussed to the whole committee and what to expect, and then we'll be able to form, if any subcommittees need to be formed, at that point we'll be able to do that. But tomorrow's meeting, we'll discuss both, and then we'll have a community meeting before having any other meetings there. And so hopefully that'll bring everybody in, see where we're at, and we'll be able to share that information both with the smaller committee, get their feedback, and then with the larger community meeting. And then we can kind of break off into the parent side of things and how it's going to impact the students, as well as what needs to be done for the building.
Oh, good, thank you. So it would be appropriate to encourage those people that had the question to watch tomorrow night so that they can see which way things are going. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes my report.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hockman. Next, special education, I'm sorry.
Through the chair, and thank you, Mr. Hockman. A couple of items in regards to, you had mentioned athletics earlier. In regards to the high school, I just got a couple of messages, questions this week in regards to whether or not we could keep up with some of the maintenance around the snack shack, around the memorial, and there were some lights that were out in the parking lot as well as near the snack shack. If we could just have someone take a look at that this week, because we do have a home game this, I believe it's Friday night, so if we could do that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hockman.
Great, thank you, Mr. Miko. Okay, Special Education Parent Advisory Board, Mr. Olympio.
Thank you. We are meeting next Tuesday right here at the Higgins, June, wishful thinking. September 19th, 6 o'clock right here at the Higgins. We have merged CPAC and CPAB together. We'll be electing CPAC members next Tuesday. I volunteered to be president, so I'll certainly be trying to recruit other people to be official members as well. I look forward to seeing familiar and new faces. We're also, get a chance to meet Ms. Crompton, the Special Education Director, along with the team chair persons. Also, too, we'll talk a little bit on how to read an IEP. So I look forward to that, and we'll be scheduling one meeting a month. So we have some guest speakers coming in this year, and like I said, we're working on some type of workshop fair in the spring. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. City Council and Legislative Delegation, Mrs. Carpenter?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Redistricting Subcommittee, Mr. Hockman, anything to report? Okay. Performing Arts, Mr. Swanson?
Yes, just quickly. Obviously, everybody's back to school. As Mr. Hockman said, Ben will be on the field this coming Friday for our first home football game. Football team's off to an awesome start. A lot of tryouts and preparation happening for our great fall season. We have jazz band tryouts across the high school and middle school. The posting of the fall play, the positions will be posted this week, so they're preparing for that and getting ready for another great season. So I do want to take 2 seconds and say to all of our teachers, staff, and all our supporting, welcome back, and awesome job getting the school year off. I think you guys started early. Everybody came back to a phenomenal start of the school year, so thank you to everybody.
Great, thank you, Mr. Swanson. Okay, we don't have any items on the new business today. We do have items for the next agenda. Item
Mr.
number
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Hockman.
Mr. Mayor? Sorry, I apologize for interrupting. It's hard when I'm behind you. I just wanted to point out one thing, and Mr. Swanson kind of reminded me of it. This Friday night, there's a lot going on at the high school campus and around the city in terms of school activities. And I just wanted to remind, I know we have a wonderful staff and faculty that's supportive of all of our students and all of their endeavors. I just wanted to remind that there may be some students that don't participate who normally would, because it is the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year and the high holidays. And some students who are of the Jewish faith may be celebrating with their families or with their synagogues, and that may be a reason for them not to participate. And I know that none of our faculty would hold that against them, but I just wanted to point that out and remind some folks that is what is taking place this Friday. So, so that we act accordingly. So thank you for giving me the floor for a minute.
Absolutely, thank you, Mr. Hockman. Okay, items for the next agenda will be handled in the regular course, and our next regular school committee meeting would be scheduled for Tuesday, September 26th, 2023, 7 p.m. right here in the Higgins Library. All right, move to adjourn. Thank you all for a good meeting.